Sarah is a writer, poet, filmmaker and actor based in Glasgow. She's a BAFTA Scotland New Award Talent nominee, a Sky Arts Academy Art Scholar, and the Young Women's Movement's 30 under 30 listed influential women in Scotland. Sorry, that's from back. I don't want to We're really excited to hear about Sarah's first book, Fat Girl Best Friend, Claiming Our Space, Plus Size Women in Film and Television. Using her experiences as a plus size queer, working class creative, working in film and television, Sarah interweaves personal anecdotes with socio-political analysis on our most loved media to explore why fat characters are rarely at the forefront of storytelling. This book is a pop culture voyage that celebrates, interrogates and sticks up for plus size women in film and television while championing female friendship at the core. That's a little intro, and yeah, let's give Sarah a big welcome.
Thank you so much. I don't usually have to, I usually die up the back when my bio is being read, so now I'm just like, yee. But yeah, thank you so much for coming. This is amazing. I love this shop so much and everything it does, so it feels very surreal and lovely to be here. This is only the second outing of Fat Girl Best Friend. I had my launch at the start of July, and this is its first outing into the real world, so I'm really happy that it's here. I just thought in terms of sharing a bit with you, I'm just going to share a bit of the first chapter and then have a little bit of a chat. There's so much that I want to just squeeze into having chats and things, and I could talk about this until I die, so please do think of questions and come chat to me afterwards. But yeah, this is the start of Fat Girl Best Friend. So it's Christmas 2006. I'm halfway through my 1-year film and media national qualification course at college. My UCAS application recently sent off. I'm awaiting a response as to whether I've received a place to study film, media and English studies at the University of Stirling. I have my sights set on one day being a director and writer for film and television. Christmas Day is a quiet affair at my place. We stop by my granny's and my aunties, say hello, exchange cuddles and presents, and then we go home and phone a Chinese takeaway. It's an unusual Christmas tradition, but we do all pack onto the living room couch and watch the seasonal programming of the good old BBC. The highlight of 2006, the Vicar of Dibley Christmas special. I mean, I was always a creative kid, but my decision to study film at university came after I saw Baz Luhrmann's 2001 musical explosion, Moulin Rouge. Since I can remember, my sister and I have had freakish memories when it comes to movies. After seeing a film once, we can quote 90% of the script back to you. They were a huge part of my life and how I communicated with the world. Before the meme, there was the movie quote. Despite this, it wasn't until my teens I had this eureka moment that there was someone, like an actual human person, whose job it was to decide why there were songs in Moulin Rouge, decide on the costume, someone to read the script and bring it to life with their own brand of magic. And I wanted to be that person who made those choices. I couldn't wait to get out into the world, move away from university and make memories. I heard the phrase, write what you know, but I was a working class and sheltered kid and I didn't know much about anything. I knew Glasgow, I knew school, I knew the working class family, and I also knew female friendship can save your life. The Vicar of Dibley was familiar. I was raised on it. It was home. Jerry Granger, portrayed by the national treasure Dawn French, who, by the way, liked this book. So I'm going to die. A self-proclaimed babe with a bob cut and magnificent bosom, was a voice I knew very well. The show first aired in November 1994, a month before my sister was born, so technically I've known and loved Jerry Granger longer than I've known and loved my sister. I'll get some grief for that, but it's worth it. In 2006, the Christmas special was to be the final episode, so I was sad to be saying goodbye to this formidable woman, but excited to see the end of her story. I should pause to tell you one very important thing here. I am plus size. Since I was a preteen, it was very clear that I was growing into a big girl. Development hit me like a double-decker bus. While some girls were getting their first bras, thanking God, the gods of puberty for finally blessing them with B cups, I was crying into my double G's in the fitting room of John Lewis, begging my mother for surgery. My size has had such an impact on my life and therefore is a huge part of my identity. Fat. I know the word is fat, and it is an act of reclamation for some women, and more power to those women. But as someone who has been a size 18 since they were 18 and ridiculed through school for their weight, I'm not quite ready to cheerfully turn the language of my tormentors into a love language when referring to myself. Not yet anyway, but hopefully one day. I think right now would be a good time to clarify that if I use the term plus size or fat, I'll switch between the two at various points. I'm referring to someone who is not always able to buy clothing from the general section of most high street shops. As a UK size 18, I am on the lower end of that spectrum, but it has done nothing to dull the brutal barbs of blatant fat phobia throughout my life. Now in my 30s, my body and I have been on quite a journey together. Not one without its ups and downs. As an adult, I've had to do some unpicking of habits that were unhealthy and detrimental to my happiness, habits that were fostered by growing up surrounded by diet culture and unrealistic ideas of beauty perpetuated by the mainstream media. My confidence and I have an ever-changing and fluctuating relationship, but for the most part, it's a healthy one. Even on my worst days, I can look at myself and feel love. And I know that my professional and personal worth are not tied to anyone's opinions on my exterior. It's taken a long time to get to this place of progress. And when I look back on that journey, I realise it's because my life has been filled with formative female friendships and fierce role models like Jerry Granger, a woman I saw from an early age taking up space and using her voice and making me laugh. So back to the Christmas special. Jerry is complaining about the gentrification of the village of Dibley. She's fed up of the rich Londoners taking over our village he can either get stuck in or sod off. And she makes her way over to Sleepy Cottage to tell the new owner exactly this. That is, until one such rich Londoner reveals himself to be sex on a stick, Harry the accountant, played by Richard Armitage. At this early point in Armitage's career, his most notable role to date was the leather-clad smouldering baddie Sir Guy of Gisborne in the BBC's Robin Hood. To see him appear as the new man about Dibley made the Christmas special extra festive for me. My heart near damn exploded out of my chest when he asked Jerry on a date. I was prepared for everything to go south. I'd followed Jerry through all her failed sexual exploits over 3 seasons and 2 Christmas specials, and previous experience taught me to believe that things wouldn't go the way she wanted. But after a whole episode of kissing with tongues, stalking him as he walked about the village with a mysterious pretty blonde girl who turned out to be his sister, and a reenactment of the classic jumping in the deceptively deep muddy puddle gag from season 1, this time with an added Apocalypse Now homage, Jerry is proposed to by the lovely Harry. She doesn't quite believe it herself, but when she is convinced of his proposal, she blurts out the infamous Emma Thompson at the end of Sense and Sensibility sound before running through the village, screaming in shock and joy. Honestly, I was ready to run with her. To see this woman, this paragon of confidence and kindness, of sass and self-proclaimed sexiness, get her happy ending and with an utter thirst trap like Richard Armitage was a formative moment for me. The perfect ending to a wonderful story. It armed me, it steadied me, it gave me purpose, it made me believe that not only could I be someone who told stories centering women like Geraldine Granger in my professional life, but I could also be as strong and as capable and as vulnerable and as loved as Jerry in my personal life. I wanted that kind of main character energy. I went into the new year ready for adulthood, for university, and for the start of my journey as a writer and filmmaker. Fuck, was I naive. It's strange to think that the 2006 Vicar of Dibley Christmas special was almost half my lifetime ago. I've grown up a lot since then, and I like to think I've used the latter half of my life pretty well. I'm a practicing writer and director of film and television working in the Scottish film and media industry. I have a body of work I am proud of and a handful of awards, which doesn't mean much, but it helps me tell my imposter syndrome that I am in fact not shit. In kicking and screaming my way through this field, I've made somewhat of a career of loudly speaking up for women, all women, none of your TERF bullshit here, thank you, and our stories that are unrepresented on screen. Since Jerry Granger, there have been so few positive representations of women who look like me, and I'm sick of it. I'm a writer who's trying to put the plus-size women front and centre in their narratives without having to write characters who hate themselves. A director that is trying to walk the walk and set good examples for plus-size actors, communicating that they will never be demoralised or treated as lesser in any of my narratives. That's behind the scenes stuff you don't need to know about. My work as a writer and director is not relevant to you or this book. For the purpose of this book, I am one thing only. I'm you. I'm the audience. I'm the girl in the cinema, on the couch with the DVD, in bed, watching television, or anywhere with a device and a streaming service of my choice. I'm a consumer of film and television. And like all audiences, I'm looking for something to connect to. We enjoy and invest more in the characters and stories if we relate to them. If you're a person with lived experience of war, films such as Saving Private Ryan and Black Hawk Down are going to hit you harder emotionally than it would someone without that experience. I personally don't think the girls in Sex and the City have any real problems, and they need to invent them to make themselves interesting and not hyper-privileged and shallow. But I imagine if you're a rich woman from New York, you would disagree with me. Sadly, which will come as a shock to no one, the film and television landscapes have been rather dry of characters like Geraldine Granger. It's not as if they don't exist, far from it. There are some shining examples, but very few exhibit that main character energy I felt I was promised to me when I watched the end of Jerry's story. In fact, when observing plus-size women in film and television and comparing them, their characters and their stories, there is one recurring theme that keeps on rearing its ugly, unwelcome head. One narrative for plus-size women, one role for them to be doomed to fulfill over and over again. The fat girl best friend. So many times I have smiled like an idiot when I see a pivotal role within film and television, with a film and television show being portrayed by someone who looks like me. I reach for these characters, waiting for their stories, knowing I will probably some way relate, but I'm kept waiting. My smile fades quickly as whomever is on screen is nothing more than a human-shaped prop without any character development, wants, needs, or goals set out in screen time. These are broad brushes to tar every plus-size character in film and television, and of course not all of them are fat girl best friends. But repeatedly, I see these characters crop up as insipid wallflowers or sassy sidekicks, bolstering others while expecting no growth or development of their own. It's not just the emptiness of these characters that infuriates me, but how closely this ugly trope is intrinsically linked to female friendship on screen. Female friendship is something that I have been drawn to in my work because it has such a big impact on my life. The girls with me through the worst of high school, the women who got me home safe on my most stupid university blackouts, and the women who held the door open for me professionally, the women who inspire me, who graft with me, who lift me, encourage me, share tacos and margaritas with me, who raise me and look after me and love me. Despite being raised watching women on screen who look like me play the eternal sounding board or hopeless and naive cling on to their best friend, when it comes to the women in my life, I have never once felt like I've had to earn my place in their stories. Well, this is my story, and like I've said before, I am you, the audience, so this is our story. As a writer and filmmaker, I want to create stories that will connect and resonate with people like me, but as an audience member, all I want is to believe that there is space for such stories. I'm just going to go ahead and say something that will make me sound like master of the fucking obvious, but here it is anyway. Hollywood and the Western media have always been the worst perpetrators of upholding and glorifying unrealistic body types, especially for women, presenting only the most limited scopes for ideal beauty and making the hundreds of millions of people who do not conform feel like shit for not upholding these unrealistic ideals. For a long time, there were a very powerful few who controlled the mainstream media and how it reached the masses. But a lot has changed since Jerry Granger's time. Social media and the internet have completely changed the rules of distribution. Visibility and representation have never been better. Plus-size model Tess Halliday has appeared on the cover of top fashion magazines in the world. Plus-size influencers in everything from fashion to fitness are making full-time wages solely from being visible online. These real-life women are not waiting for permission to take up space in the world. It's just not quite being reflected on our screens. Space is a powerful thing. Women are conditioned to take up as little of it as possible, and as a plus-size woman, your very body is a painful reminder that you have failed. This toxic web of bullshit conditioning is something we are just starting to collectively unpick and expel from our consciousness. Spending my life identifying with the fat girl best friend taught me that my narratives were not as important as that of my thin friends, and that I needed to earn my place in the circle, put their needs before my own, and that I should naturally expect less than them in all things. It taught me to be grateful for second place. It's a toxic web that I am slowly unpicking from my brain, and it is working. Plus-size women in film and television are so few and far between, they stand far enough apart that you cannot see the similarities and tropes that bind them, and further perpetuate the negative stereotypes and subsequent treatment of plus-size women. Through my lived experience and my training in both craft behind and in front of the camera, I am situated to see these similarities, no matter how distant they seem to be. These women characters are so inconsequential in the bigger picture of on-screen representation that who cares about the tropes and stereotypes? I do. And I'm done feeling like the fat girl best friend. I want to be the leading lady. I want to embody that sweet and shining main character energy. I plan to take up space here on behalf of these plus size characters in film and television who were not given enough of it in their own stories, who faded into the background and who were trotted out for a narrative purpose without ever being asked what they wanted. Through the focused lens of female friendship, I'm going to look closely at these characters out with the context of their original texts, compare their journeys and their similarities. Maybe if we can give language to the behaviours of these characters, it will be easy to call out in the future, to demand more time, more information, more nuanced and development of the women sidelined, to demand more main character energy. Thank you. Yes, that was chapter 1 of Fat Girl Best Friend, and the way that the book is set out is that it dives into different aspects, so women in comedy, women in animation, the fake out fat, so women who we are told are fat when they are not, and it dives into lots of different things. I have a little bit of a talk just to kind of go through a little bit of a whistle stop thing and hopefully start a conversation and hopefully interest you more in the book. So it's titled Why I Decided to Write This Book When I'm Wildly Dyslexic and an Awful Procrastinator. So for those who don't know me beyond the short introduction I gave in the book, something that you need to know about me is that I never dreamed of being in front of the camera because I knew what I looked like and I knew it'd be very hard for me to be an actor in such a harsh industry. So I decided to be behind the camera. But over the past few years, spurred on by the pandemic and needing to make things, I've been working more and more as a writer-performer, creating characters for me to act in. I'm at a very strange point in my career where I feel like I'm sitting at the centre of a very particular Venn diagram and I can see lots of intersections between being a creator of media and an actor and a plus-size person finding her confidence and her voice and more. Being a woman in comedy is a really powerful place to be. Comedy is how I try and reach across the aisle and welcome people from different places and experiences to engage with me in my stories. I was just about to say I much prefer humour to the soapbox routine, but there's definitely a little bit of soapbox around Fat Girl Best Friend, but we'll look over that. My main concern was this: knowing the difference between being laughed at and being laughed with. How many people in here had formative years in the 90s and noughties? Okay. Yeah, it wasn't a good time for us, was it? This was the age where comedy was so lazy because the writers of those properties, there was no bigger joke than the existence of a fat body. Anyone else traumatised by Fat Monica? Shallow Hal, Eurotrip, Big Mama's House. I wish I could say that things have gotten better with time, but people have just gotten smarter. Fat Amy in Pitch Perfect. She might seem like a positive representation of a plus-size character. I mean, she reclaims the word fat. She confesses to having multiple boyfriends. She's really confident about her voice and her body. That seems great. But by the way, if you think that we're living in a body positive age, when I Googled Fat Amy, like her character name, over half the images on Google Image are Rebel Wilson's weight loss before and after pictures. What the creator of Pitch Perfect do with Fat Amy is make you doubt whether her confidence is real or delusional. They make her the other. You cannot relate to someone who says things like, I'm the best singer in Tasmania with teeth, or I've wrestled dingoes and crocodiles simultaneously, which is clearly a lie. They also make her a pathological liar, like her real name is Fat Patricia. When you can't believe a word she says, and when you're led to believe that she just lives in her own world of delusion, equating confidence to craziness is just another way to laugh at the fat girl. Instead of laughing at how her body is, we're laughing at her delusion because she likes her body, and we know that she shouldn't. I'm currently in an environment where people in the creative industries, not through any malice, just through we're living in the society, are expecting me to do the same thing, expecting me to offer up my body as the joke, which I refuse to do. But being plus size and liking your body is a dangerous game because we have been perpetually gaslit by the Western media to have warped view of our bodies. Fat, in the neutral sense of the word, is someone who would find it difficult to find clothing in the generic section of the high street stores, but we were told that Renée Zellweger as Bridget Jones was fat. We were told that America Ferrera in The Sisterhood of the Travelling Pants was fat, that she couldn't fit all this into the all what? There was nothing there, I'm sorry. There is a whole storyline in Sex and the City, the movie, where Samantha, in order to stop herself from cheating on her partner, starts emotional eating, and then she appears on camera looking exactly the same, just wearing an unflattering low-rise jeans until someone says, Mother of God, what's with the gut? What fucking gut? What's even more sad is when the journey from fatness to thinness is used as a way to show character growth. The reformed fatty trope is used to show determination in a good case and vengeance in a bad. Has anyone heard of the term revenge body? What fucked up person thought of that? Goldie Hawn in Death Becomes Her eating ice cream with her hands because fat equals slovenly, obviously. Hefty Hannah in Pretty Little Liars, a huge part of this character's arc was around the fact that she used to be fat. And Fatty Patty in Insatiable, who kills people because she used to be fat. I added in, being fat means we don't know how to take care of our appearance. The thing that I found really funny about Insatiable is that when she loses, she goes 3 months without eating with her jaw wired shut, and then she shows up. I'm like, wow, I didn't know that weight loss came with a professional hairstylist and makeup artist. Because before, it's just, she's not even wearing any makeup and is like, yes, thin equals pretty. And I'm like, no, makeup equals. Even then. If you need more proof that the media can't just let us be, even the good examples of plus size representation treat us like the elephant in the room. Willowdean in Dumpling, she's on screen for 30 seconds before she says, I may be fat, but at least I'm not delusional. Penelope Featherington in Bridgerton is on screen for 30 seconds before her sister says what she is 2 stone heavier than she should be. It's like our bodies are the elephant in the room that we can't ignore. Like, there needs to be some sort of verbal acknowledgement from the creator saying, yes, we know we let a fat person into the movie, just as it's for a reason. Does there need to be a reason? I might sound paranoid, but this conditioning starts early, like Disney animation early. Like, there are plus size women in animation, they're just not human ones. Think of Mrs. Potato Head or Madam Mim. They're either the literal embodiment of sadness, like in Inside Out. Like, by the way, what character designer thought it was okay to communicate the emotion of sadness as a fat woman in a turtleneck? Or they're the villain. I mean, I love Ursula. Ursula is a queen, but in animation, transformation is used to raise the stakes at the climax of the film. Maleficent and Madam Mim turn into dragons, and Jafar turns into a huge genie. Ursula gets bigger. Like, that's the scariest thing this bitch could do. Get bigger. Speaking of transformation, even animations that try to invert the tropes somehow fall prey to them. Like my girl Princess Fiona in Shrek. Yes, she finds her happiness, but not wider acceptance. It's great that she discovers self-acceptance with her husband, but then at the beginning of Shrek 2, they're on their honeymoon and still being chased by people with pitchforks. So it's a case of, it's great that you have found someone to be with and we're happy for you, just stay away from our society. You still don't belong here. At the ending, it's meant to be all about changing the ending. Luke Skywalker blows up the Death Star and the world has changed. Princess Fiona and Shrek get together and but does it make any difference? Does it? Fuck, they're still back in the swamp. Yes, I have complained a lot about this, but there is hope. There's some amazing plus size icons that do incredible things for representation in this industry. But are there stories really changing the industry for the better? We're not quite there yet. Anyone seen Barbie yet? I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who hasn't. You have no idea how much my heart sang when Sharon Rooney was cast as Lawyer Barbie. That girl went to my high school and I'm like, girl, you are making it. Why does she wear a 3-piece suit to the beach? If you're watching it or rewatching it, look out for her costuming and how she is covered from head to toe constantly. It's great that she's there, but let's try and make her blend in as much as possible by covering her fucking body. Oh, it rips my knitting. I believe this is the beginning of something better, though. It is the beginning of a better understanding of the tropes that degrade us, even as they're sneaky and disguised, and the language used to call them out is still being formed. Maybe it won't, but I had an amazing and cathartic time writing this book. It was the start of me really understanding my hesitance to take up space and to feel like I shouldn't, to figure out how to counter those voices. Like, I don't place much stock in personality tests, but I have done a few out of boredom, and I always end up being the type ENFJ, which is the protagonist. I am the main character. I want everyone to say it in the room. I want everyone to say, I am the main character of my life. I am the main character of my life. I am not a sidekick. I am the hero of my own story. Don't let anyone ever make you feel like you're not, and thank you for having me. Sweaty.
We've got a little while for some questions now, so I'll ask one to kick things off, which also lets everyone think of their own question. I really liked the focus on female friendship in the book, and I was wondering what you thought it is about female friendship specifically as a relationship that makes it so unique, that allows the potential that you talk about, compared to other types of relationships? What is special about it?
I think just, I guess... Yes, okay, so what makes female friendship the thing that can save everything? There's a chapter in the book called Female Friendship is the Silver Bullet, and I really do believe that is true specifically for me. The book is dedicated to my best friend Katrina, and myself and Katrina write and work in things together. We have a BBC pilot called Stunners where we play best friends, and it was so refreshing to get to play as equals. We're in a two-hander. It's really rare to find a two-hander that does it. It's fair enough, there's always going to be like, the structure in film and television where there's the main character and then there's like the best friend character. That's always fine. But what you'll notice is if there's a plus size main character is that they won't need any wants. We don't know who they fancy. We don't know how their grades are going, if they're in high school. Sometimes bad things happen to them so that it can send the main character off on a quest. Like Barb in Stranger Things literally dies episode 2, and it is the entire genesis of Nancy's story. And it's like, did she have to die to do that? There is a huge, incredible ensemble cast, and yet they kill her off to send Nancy on her way. But what I find really funny is that it's not real. It's not real. That's not my experience. That's not my experience. I have an amazing bunch of friends, of women all throughout my life, all from different backgrounds and all different body types and sizes. We all go through our own shit together, and we know and we're taught, and it's a way of being safe in this world, is to rely on the other women in your life and to like take care of each other and to help each other through the difficult things. So I just think it's absolutely bonkers that over and over and over again. And again, this is what I was kind of saying, where there's so few plus size women in film and television that it's difficult to kind of catch it over and over again. But when you put them all together, you're like, oh, this is the same thing over and over again. Why is this person empty? Why is she empty? Why is she synonymous with sad or unimportant? And that's not ever been my thing. I felt that way because I live in a fatphobic society. We all live in a fatphobic society, which is why I don't think there's any more... There's a difference between weight stigma and fat phobia. Fat phobia is what we're all living in. Weight stigma is the cultural exclusion of your body. But we can all agree that we live in a fat phobic society, and it's horrible. And you can be like a size 8 and go home for Christmas and someone's like, you put on a bit of weight, and you'll feel like the worst person in the world. And the person you want to talk to about that is your best friend. I mean, like, I feel really, really horrible. And then they'll be like, you are a queen, step it up. Like, and that is just not reflected. So I would never, if I felt the way that I was made to feel, or if I saw myself represented on screen and acted that way, then I would never have the confidence to write a book. I would never have the confidence to do what I do and put myself on screen and to be a director, to be like, someone that's in charge of telling a story. But the reason that I don't feel that way is that there are people in my life that have told me that I am better than that. And this is what I don't understand, why we keep seeing this on screen, because it's not real. So I think maybe if we spend more time giving credence and giving importance to women-led stories, and I have a whole other book about the marketing of chick flicks and how we're made to feel like we are stupid for wanting these stories when they're not actually stupid. They're actually really important. But yeah, I think if we give more time and space to female friendship as a story, then we might actually feel a bit better about ourselves. That was a very long-winded answer, and I'm not sure if I actually answered the question.
Yeah, we can take some questions from the audience now, so anyone has one? Give everyone a minute to think. Yeah, go for it.
Sarah, I've been lucky enough to see some of your movies over the years, and new movie, little plug for coming out in the film festival. But you can be so real and self-revealing and personal in your movies, which I think is... I want to know, what does it feel like? I remember when you said that great quote by Neil Gaiman when you introduced one of your movies, and I just want to ask, what does it feel like to be so real in your films?
I have been making films with the 48-hour film challenge for 7 years now, and Sam is the person who runs the competition with Edinburgh and Glasgow, and if it's something you're interested in getting into movies, it's the most accessible way to get into the film industry, and it's massively helped my career. And one time I made a movie that did very well for this competition, and it was It was called Scare. It was about a pregnancy scare, and the reason that I decided to make it was because my team weren't available, and I was so sure that if I put that much myself out there, I would get hatred. I would be told, don't be on screen, don't talk about these things, and torn the fuck apart. And I was like, but it was around about a time that there was a lot of legislative changes in Northern Ireland and Alabama, and I felt very strongly about it. And the only reason I had the balls is I was like, I think I can take the abuse. I don't want to put this back on anyone. And then instead of getting any abuse, it was met with nothing but love and support. And it was the first time that I felt, and the quote from Neil Gaiman is from the Make Good Art commencement speech, which is a great speech that I kind of go back to quite often when I'm feeling like I can't see the wood for the trees. It's when you feel like you're walking down the street naked, exposing too much of your heart and soul, that's when you might be starting to get it right. And that is definitely true for me. This was a film that was very important to me, and it did very well. It got me my first commission with industry. They commissioned the treatment and then the script for a feature film version of it. It was my way in, and it was because it was so dramatic, it was really easy to just switch my perspective because of this dramatic change. I imagined that it would take slower to kind of do that, but instead of thinking these are the things that people are going to hate me for, think about these are the things that you have to say. Like these are not things that you need to worry about how people are going to perceive them, but if you have to say them, then say them. And it works for me, and I keep trying to push myself. The film that I've got coming out, I've got my first documentary playing on next Saturday as part of the Bridging the Gap, which is kind of like first time documentary makers. It's a film called Big Moves, and it's about how when I was in the pandemic, we're all looking for something to do. I took up dance classes in my living room because no one could see me, thinking very filmily that I could not dance because I had never seen a body like mine dance. And then when I learned to dance, I was like, shit, why did I think I couldn't do this? So then again, it's I rely a lot on my film and television things where I look at incredible dance sequences in films, and then I recreate them, putting my body in them, just to kind of be like, maybe if I saw this one. So it's a bit wild, but I get to do the start of the Dirty Dancing thing with the arm thing and the nose kiss and spinning about. It was great. I get to do the Napoleon Dynamite dance. It's great. So and that was just so joyful, and that was the most scary. And it was very funny how we went about this film, because I'm so used to now being that person that I can talk for fat women, I can do that presenter Sarah isn't real Sarah. And there was a huge amount of work done with my team to make sure that I was removed enough from the process so I couldn't control the narrative. I couldn't editorialize my own experience for my own comfort, so it was a horribly uncomfortable film. I wasn't allowed to know anything. We had this great first meeting, and then they went, right, fuck off, we'll see you at the shoot, and that was awful. I made a whole new film by myself because I was so uncomfortable about not being able to be part of this one. But it's not gone wrong for me yet, and it's made me take amazing personal steps and professional steps by not thinking about why people will hate me for saying this, and saying, does it need to be said? So I hope that answers the question. Yeah. Anyone else? I can chat for Scotland. Hi.
You spoke a lot about negative representation in media. I wonder if you have any favourite positive representation throughout film and media.
Oh, so many. I absolutely love Orange is the New Black. Sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. So positive representations, there are definitely amazing positive representations. Fun enough, quite a few of them I don't talk about a lot in the book because I'm looking at main character energy and female friendship, but there is an ode to the Lost Ensemble cast. These amazing people who maybe were written into it just to be fat girl best friends or background characters, but then just their presence and them being amazing and taking up space meant that they got more and more lines and more time. Orange is the New Black is a great example. Retta is character as Donna in Parks and Recreation, Phyllis in The Office, and just lots of great people who probably weren't originally written in to get that space, but they took it up anyway, and then people saw them for that. And it's just about, you just got to be seen, and then people will see you, but it's looking for that opportunity to be seen in the first place. I'm also a huge fan of Sharon Rooney in My Mad Fat Diary. I think for the naughties, it was very sad. It was a horrible drama about eating disorders and control, but at the same time, it was really amazing to actually get to see that and allow her to do that. And funnily enough, her best friend character, the Jodie Comer character, I talk about the toxic thin character, because as the fat girl best friend character, it is our job to prop up the thin lead. And when the thin lead's like, should I read my boyfriend's text messages, instead of being a normal human going, no, that's an invasion of privacy, it's going, I wish I had a boyfriend and you're lovely and you're the best, you can do no wrong, do the thing, which is ridiculous. And we're used as a way to further them on and justify their bad behaviours. And we're used to further the thin lead story. However, in the case of Jodie Comer, she was used to remind Ray, you shouldn't talk about your mental health, people are going to think you're weird, you shouldn't be eating that much, you shouldn't be binging, you should be embarrassed. So it was her job as the thin best friend to make sure that Ray was reminded of the society she lived in, so she wouldn't step outside of it, which was a really interesting dynamic. So as much as, again, I'm like, I'm not sure you were sure of doing that at the start, but it was really good. That's a one I kind of go back to, and if I want a big cathartic cry, is my Mad Fat Diary. But yeah, that was great. And they were made by the same, and there are some people who do it. Tiger Aspect is the production company that made both my Mad Fat Diary and The Vicar of Dibley, and it's just good to know that when you kind of see these stories cropping up at the same time, you're like, there are people that are seeing this for what it's worth, and there are successes, so hopefully more people are going to start doing that more and more. But people are taking my meetings now, which is a good sign, and I'm always just a little bit like, you know I'm fat, right? And they're like, yes, we do. I'm like, cool, just getting out of the way. But yeah, so there's good change is coming. I know that it is. It's just sometimes it's difficult to advocate for yourself instead of saying I'm just uncomfortable. So hopefully I was trying to make room for language to mean like, actually there's a bingo card at the back, which is always fun. You see a fat person in a film, rip out the book and have a look at your bingo card and see if they're a good representation or a bad. But yeah, being able to do that means that when I see scripts or when I see stories and when I have suggestions, I was in a film last year called Candy, which was my first industry funded short film, and it was about a plus size burlesque enthusiast, and I played the part of the main character myself because it was my first industry funded film, and I wanted to walk the walk. I wanted to convince people in the future that I'm willing to get naked on top of a car in February in Glasgow. It was not a good time. I want to be that person, and I forgot my point. I'm sure it'll come back to me. But yeah, I get to kind of be that person. And oh yes, that was it. Sorry, I was working with execs and things because it was funded, and they were asking me questions, and quite often they were saying, any chance we could have her sit next to her friend? And we're really interested in her friend's drama, who was the thin lead. Katrina played the thin lead, or like the thin best friend who was actually going through a serious problem. But my point of the film was the fat girl best friend character, the comic relief character, the one that's going to make things easier, the one that while you're escaping a bad relationship gets naked on front of top of a car to be a distraction. Her story is important too. She's not a bad, like, why don't we take this important story that we have seen before and actually do it from her point of view? And they kept trying to say, can we have her just sitting and listening to Jenna more? Can we hear more about Jenna? And I had to say, I think you have a little bit of unconscious bias in positioning my character with that of the thin lead. And my fucking God, did they backtrack after I said those words. But I was like, this is powerful language that's caused change. Like, if I didn't have that language before, then I would have had to change my script to do that, which wasn't the point of it. So it's been really powerful for me working going forward. But yeah, stand on the shoulders of giants, of course, with Jerry Granger. But yeah, thank you for your question. I have no concept of time, so I'm like.
Yeah, I think that kind of brings us to the end. So if there's no more questions, let's give Sarah a big round of applause.
Thank you so much.
Move through to the fiction room on this side, so then we can start wrapping up this one. That would be great. Thank you so much,
everyone.